This is chapter 60 of the audio version of Stories of the Gospels, a book written and copyrighted by Daniel Limpinall. As the time of his death came near, Jesus prophesied many future events. This is the second of two chapters that discuss what he predicted and describes them with history and imagination. He predicted the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem about 36 years before it was destroyed. Then he gave the signs of the end of the age. Before the end of the age comes, there will be lots of suffering and misery for many people, and it will increase in severity as the end draws near. But this good news about the kingdom will spread all around the nations. The sign of the coming Messiah will be in the sky, but they will still be surprised because no one ever believes today is their last day. Never before has God's word been so alive. Enjoy a living experience of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Stories of the Gospels, chapter 60, Future Events Prophesied by Jesus, part 2. Think about it. Today your world is constantly experiencing trauma. Most people are having trouble facing their fears. We have health concerns and security concerns. We have a constant threat of bombs, nuclear fallout, riots, epidemics, scams, and being harassed by authority. There are hotspots for war all around the world, plus earthquakes, pestilence, and famines locally and globally. There are classes of people in every country that are facing extreme poverty and are struggling to survive. But in our recent history, we are told of two world powers who attempted to militarily take over every nation on earth. The other world powers at that time had to mobilize their armies to crush these two historic powers. Now imagine these same world powers recognizing the need to coordinate more than the armies of the world in order to maintain world peace. Imagine that they observe that free trade between nations is no longer able to adequately distribute food and other necessities around the world. Therefore, these world powers decide to coordinate the food production, manufacturing, and migrations of people around the world using military power to enforce their decisions. However, after many attempts and the implementation of various strategies, there are still shortages and famines, and therefore global unrest increases. But in addition to wars increasing, imagine earthquakes, pestilence, and famines intensifying even more, and then imagine that global panic sets in. At this very moment, imagine a highly successful consultant begins to achieve popularity as the result of his successes in bringing order to various nations who hire him. He is called on repeatedly to provide answers for hotspots around the world. The world powers coordinating the food and resources of the earth decide to employ him. Imagine that they place him at the top of their activities, giving him greater and greater authority. But even as his power increases, so do the threats around the world. His successes are not as dependable as when he only had to focus his attention locally. But the world powers don't have any other good options. Therefore, his popularity and reputation puts him into the control of many nations, their resources, and their militaries. One of the hotspots that he is successful in calming is the Middle East. He conceives a new arrangement to bring peace to the Middle East nations. This gives high hopes to the Jewish nation of Israel for a new era of peace. But they are also determined to build a temple to the Lord God of heaven and earth. This temple will be successfully built, although it is built in violation of many treaties. Even today, very few people on earth consider why Jerusalem is so important to so many nations. It is constantly of interest and affects decision-making all over the world. This is incredibly ironic. Almost as ironic as the Nazi belief that even a few million Jews were harmful to national economic stability. The reason can only be understood by the Holy Bible. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, the only nation to be founded by God and specifically founded for the worship of Yahweh. The clans of Israel are the only peoples who God claims to be his firstborn son. God considers himself the father of all, and especially of those who believe in Jesus. But out of all nations and peoples, Israel has been chosen as the leader of nations. Jesus Christ is the promised Messiah to Israel. Jesus is Lord, and he is the King of all kings. This puts Israel in the distinct position to be hated by the rulers of darkness over every nation. This makes Israel the highest priority target of the struggles of these evil powers against God. Anyone or any nation supporting Israel is automatically on the same list of targets. It is also true that the ignorance of anyone who doesn't understand that these evil rulers are causing all of Earth's problems are themselves part of a great deception. But it is because of this hatred of God and the nation of Israel that Satan inspires the powers of darkness to erect a sacrilegious object in the temple of God in Jerusalem. These enemies of Yahweh do not recognize Israel as God's possession, nor do they recognize God as their Lord. But even more severe is their attitude that says, if we cannot control Israel and all the nations of the earth for our own purpose, we will destroy the earth completely before it can be ruled by Jesus Christ. Furthermore, since we can't destroy the earth ourselves, we will seduce the nations to desecrate the earth to such a decree that the judgments of God sent to cleanse the earth will destroy it. This is the unspoken game plan of all the rulers behind every nation on earth. They are like a powerful prostitute that seduces the nations. They constantly pay her what she demands. She is prepared to destroy any nation that doesn't obey her, even the whole world. The fury of God is therefore unleashed on the earth in order to separate those who want God's salvation through Jesus Christ. That is the test and the purpose for the test. Those who are not willing to call on the name of Jesus for salvation will experience the final torment reserved for Satan and the powerful prostitute, hellfire. Humans, even godly believers, have little understanding of how each and every one of their sins affect the stability of the world and the universe that surrounds it. It is only God's hand that protects the world and supports all of creation. God knows the greatness of each and every human because he made them with that greatness, patterned after his superior greatness. Human sin refuses to acknowledge the distinctness of God's greatness to the greatness of mankind. This is prideful, and pride is the source of all sin and judgment. Every sin is a literal attack against God's protection and support of creation. Even the smallest of children are known to attack the protective, supporting love of their parents. This is a demonstration of the pride born in everyone. Every living human with the mental capacity to choose good or evil will be required to make a decision to receive salvation from God through Christ, or will accept the evil destruction that was designed for Satan and the prostitute. This is the cause and the purpose of wave after wave of destructive forces in historic proportions. Earthquakes, famines, pestilence, plus the warring of men to provide for themselves every human need and desire. These catastrophic events will cause so much misery that God will have to intervene, or a total extinction of life will occur. Even though the time is cut short by God, the misery will last for months. Immediately after the misery of those days, just when people think the catastrophes have ended, suddenly the sun will turn dark, the moon will not give light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the universe will be shaken. Imagine the sun a dark red, and the moon almost impossible to see. The days are much cooler, and summer nights are cold as winter. The leaders of the nations will prepare the earth for her last days as our sun begins to die. Imagine a meteor shower that beats the planet with continual explosive strikes, each one like our atom bomb that brings human life into submission. Imagine the earth literally wobbling. Imagine one tsunami after another making people run for high ground. The warnings are given day after day and night after night. The stress becomes unbearable and mental confusion causes many tragic decisions. Imagine being able to watch countless stars disappear, each into a massive black hole, while you stand there watching the black sky. Imagine watching this event with your friends, everyone fully aware that the earth has only a few days of life left before disappearing into oblivion. Some skeptics will still be mocking, "Where is the Christ that was prophesied to come?" These skeptics will finally get their answer. Jesus was talking to his disciples. "You will certainly know when I come again, even if you are surprised or shocked when it occurs." The Son of Man, the Son of God, the Messiah, me, Jesus Christ, will make a globally obvious entrance onto planet Earth. My return will be as obvious as lightning flashing from the eastern horizon to the western horizon. As I make an historic global approach, the atmosphere will become charged with so much energy that lightning will shoot huge arcs across the clear sky. But first, the astrological sign ordered by God at creation to announce the Messiah's second coming will appear in the sky just like the Star of Bethlehem announced his birth. He was born in obscurity, but this time everyone will know when I arrive. In fact, every person on earth will be terrified at the sight and will cry like babies when they see the Messiah coming on what will seem like a giant tornado. The tornado will be a dense, destructive darkness, but the brilliance of Christ's glory will shine as bright as lightning. Wave after wave of vultures will be soaring in formation around Jerusalem as the Messiah approaches. They will have been called from every corner of the earth to feed on the dead carcasses of armies from every nation who are mobilized around Jerusalem. As the Messiah continues his procession across the sky, he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and from every direction under the sky, God's chosen ones will gather to become a part of Christ's entourage as he sets his feet on the Mount of Olives, just outside the walls east of Jerusalem. Then Jesus paused. When he continued, he gave his disciples an illustration. He said, "Learn from the story of the fig tree. When its branches become tender and it sprouts leaves, you know that summer is near. In the same way, as the suffering and miseries for people around the world increases in severity, that is a sign that the Messiah's return is coming closer and closer." We see fig trees every day. They are common in Israel, and we know that summer is near when the branches become tender and they sprout leaves. God often uses trees to symbolize humans. Different trees grow in different parts of the world. Around the world, humans are diverse like trees. God selected the fig tree to symbolize the people of the nation Israel. Then Jesus made a prediction. "I can guarantee this truth. The generation that sees the branches of the fig tree, Israel, become tender and sprout leaves, that generation will experience the other predictions I have made, every one of them. And remember, the earth, the sky, and outer space will disappear. Yes, they will. But every one of my words will most certainly come to pass. You cannot depend on what you call Mother Nature. One day it will disappear. But you can depend on everything I say. I have given you some ways to tell what generation will see this happen, but the exact day or hour no one knows. The angels don't know, and I don't know. Only the Father knows. When the Messiah comes again, it will be just like in the days of Noah before the flood covered the whole earth. People were eating, drinking, and getting married. In their mind, life was good, and even though no one expected their lives to be without trouble, no one believed such a catastrophic end was so close at hand. They were not aware of what was happening, even though crazy Noah had built a large boat because a climate change was occurring that would cause a global flood. The flood swept all of them away. And now, you disciples of mine and everyone in Israel will also be just as surprised when the Roman Empire destroys Jerusalem and the temple of God. And also, people will be just as surprised when I come the second time, as I have told you. At that time, 2 men will be working in the field. One will be taken, and the other one will be left. 2 women will be working at a mill. One will be taken, and the other one will be left. The sign of the coming Messiah will be in the sky, but they will still be surprised, because no one ever believes today is their last day. Therefore, be spiritually awake and alert. Remember what I have told you. Share it with others to help you remember. Why should you care if others mock the truth? If you don't want to be surprised, you need to remember the signs, because no one knows the exact day or hour. If a homeowner knew what time the thief was going to break into his house, he would have planned to be there, ready to defend his property. Therefore, you too must be ready. If you don't remember the signs, the Messiah will return when you least expect him. The truth is that God will give most of his believers an opportunity to serve others. What they do with the opportunity reveals how prepared they are for the Messiah's return. God will provide most of his believers with something that exceeds their daily necessities, so they can share it. Money, food, clothes, joy, shelter, comfort, education, intelligence, wisdom, health assistance, household chores, etc. To whom much is given, much is required. Think about this. If a person is beaten so he cannot obtain food, and someone with extra food learns what happened but ignores feeding the injured person, how are they any different than the person who did the beating? Those who are faithful to God will wisely serve him by first measuring their excesses by the lack of others. They will not view their excesses as something to be lost, but as their God-given job to serve the lack of others unconditionally. They will not see this job as a burden, but as a way to become even more blessed. However, if that servant is greedy, is afraid of being equal to ordinary people, despises the poor, is prejudiced, or fears the loss of their property, that servant will likely be tempted to make excuses, so they can ignore using their excesses to serve the lack of others. They will try to forget or ignore that when I return, I will make every person give an account for their excesses. I gave the excess, and I know exactly how much it is. Remember, I give personal property to everyone. Some people's property I entrust to others, and it is to be faithfully used to help the lack of the person it belongs to. It is the God-given job of those with excess to identify whose property they are entrusted with. Listen to this example. A father with a drinking problem cannot feel his family's needs. He can only feel his body's craving for alcohol. In the same way, any mind can be deceived to feel that their own desires are less than excessive, while at the same time they cannot feel the needs of those that they have a God-given responsibility to help. When I come, I will deal appropriately with these fakers. They fake righteousness, they fake loyalty, and they fake humanity. I will see to it that they feel treachery, starvation, and insecurity. Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21. What's the point of knowing the future? Have you realized that most people want to know their future for selfish reasons? Somehow, they believe that knowing something good is coming speeds its progress and makes them feel better. But God has already promised to provide all our needs. We are to ask Him for all of them. We can even ask for excesses. Jesus told the disciples the future of the world so we would not be disturbed by the increasing calamities. The world doesn't have good news coming, but since we know that bad news is going to increase, it will help us to trust God and His Word. Some people think God's people are negative because we are so opinionated about bad news. The reality is that God has prepared us so that calamities won't affect us as severely. Hell is the worst bad news, and people would rather ignore that bad news. But it too is coming, as surely as the end of the world. Jesus Christ, the Messiah, came to seek and to save the lost, because God doesn't want anyone to perish in hell. Anyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Thank you for listening. Be sure to press the like button and subscribe. God willing, I will publish another chapter every Wednesday. Tell your friends about your experience listening to stories of the Gospels, and let your comments tell many more, and me too. I trust you sensed God's presence during the story. You know only our guilt keeps us from God. So confess your sin and have confidence in God. He will forgive you and cleanse you. He wants to experience life together with you. One of the most important but forgotten aspects of the gospel of Jesus Christ is that it is to be demonstrated, not merely preached. You can do this by sharing. If you don't share otherwise, you can share with others by giving to my ministry by going to my channel and clicking the donate button on the banner image at the top.